Well, Richard, welcome to the KGB. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Alan. Nice to be with you.
Now, were you surprised that 50 of Coles suppliers have complained to the ACCC about illegal behaviour by Coles?
Well, I'm not sure it's 50. We don't know how many, and we don't.
Rod Sims said it was about 50.
Yeah, we don't know how many.
Don't you believe Rod? He said that to the committee, so it must be true.
Well, he said for Coles and Woolworths, so presumably.
Coles and Woolworths, okay.
Yeah,
so it's not just Coles.
So it may not just be us. That's right. And yeah, we'll see what comes out of that investigation. We've done our own internal work to ensure that we're behaving in an appropriate way. We'll cooperate fully with the ACCC on the investigation. But Alan, I think our arrangements with suppliers and our relationships with suppliers have done nothing but got stronger since we acquired the business. We've got significantly higher turnover in Coles than we had in 2007. They've got much greater visuals through the business now on what our orders are likely to be. Their orders are stronger. As in all of these things, there's some winners and losers, and often it's the losers who make all the noise.
But it's pretty straightforward. I mean, at least some have complained about Coles behaving unconscionably and or misuse of market power. So the ACCC is naturally looking into that, and if you're found to be guilty of that, you'll be prosecuted.
Yeah, if that's the case, and if we've done something we shouldn't have done, then we'll pay the price for that. I'm very confident there's nothing systemic in the business, and we've had another look at what we're doing to make sure that we've got the appropriate policies in place. Where there has been one-off instances, we deal with those appropriately internally and with suppliers. So, Alan, in some ways I welcome this investigation because there's been a lot of noise for a year or two about it. And I think what it will also do is turn the spotlight on what's going on in the supplier base in Australia, amongst whom there are players with significant market share and significant market power, and amongst whom there are some who haven't invested enough in their productive capabilities, and because of high currency, they are using the blame game with Coles and Woolworths to deal with their own inefficiencies and shortcomings.
Do you think a large number of our food suppliers are inefficient?
I think some are, Robert. I think some there hasn't been the investment. I think for a long time in Australia, the supermarkets just pushed prices up. When suppliers came saying we want to increase prices, it suited the supermarkets just to say sure, and consumers paid more for their food, and that's why the Rudd government had a food price inquiry in 2008, because food prices in Australia had increased way beyond the level of inflation for some period of time. When we took over Coles, the new Coles management pushed back on that and said, no, justify to us price increases, because every time this happens, consumers pay more. Right
now, the unions are demanding a 4% rise in the toll transport group's costs. I think Linsox, according to press reports, they've fallen over. So are we going to see a rise in the costs, and will you pass that on?
Well, where we have to, we will. But the focus when we acquired Coles, one of the key platforms of what we were trying to do with the business was to get price trust from our customers. And at the time we took over Coles, there was every week 5,000 to 10,000 products on special. Prices were going up and down all over the place, and consumers had no idea what was going on. So we've endeavoured to reduce food prices. I think we have, and I think that's made a considerable difference for consumers. And so any costs that come through the supply chain, we will want to understand what they are. We can absorb them, we will. Where we can put our productivity increases into lower prices, we will, because that brings more customers into our stores. But if transport costs go up, then that'll be reflected not just in our costs.
Will you play hardball with Toll? You say, listen, you shouldn't have given in to the unions.
No, well, because we've got a long, strong relationship with Toll and Linfox and others, and we'll work with them because we want a long-term sustainable relationship with them, because we want them to be world-class in terms of the logistics arrangements with us.
You probably reckon the ACCC should be giving you and Ian McLeod a medal, not investigating you. So, I mean, you've brought prices down. You've done it. You've revolutionised groceries in Australia. You and Ian McLeod. I mean, you should be getting a little trophy.
I don't think we will, Alan. I don't think we'll get a trophy.
No, but you must have. Were you disappointed to find Rod Sims coming out and giving you a whack like that after all you've done over the past 5 years?
Oh no, I think it's been coming for a while because you know, there's been a bit of political pressure on, you know, what are you guys doing, and so I think it's been coming for a while. As I said, in some ways I welcome it. You know, you never. Usually these things, Alan, aren't announced. Usually an investigation takes place quietly, and then if there's something that is untoward, then the ACCC or any regulatory body in this instance would take action. In this case, because my understanding is because Rod Sims appears in front of Senate Estimates Committees regularly, and the Senate Estimates Committee's been asking him about what he's doing. He's preempted this by saying, well, we are conducting an investigation and we do have, you know, this evidence to date. So unfortunately in this instance, you know, in the court of public opinion, we're already tried and convicted.
He's the dairy farmer's friend now.
Well, the dairy farmers, unfortunately he's not going to be able to solve the plight of the dairy farmers, and actually nor am I, because the plight of dairy farmers will be solved through stronger export markets for milk and a lower Australian dollar, and or improved efficiency at processing businesses in Australia, because Australia is an exporter of dairy products, and milk prices domestically are set by the export market. And you can understand that because when we go to a processor to acquire milk, the processor will pay a farm gate price equal to what they can bring milk to their plant at export price plus transport. And that's how the market is set, just as it's set in wheat and meat and any other primary product. And you know, Coles own label milk is 4% of milk produced in Australia, and whether we sell it for $1 or $2 a litre, frankly, wouldn't have one iota of difference for the profitability of dairy farmers in Australia. It makes a difference to our profitability, but none to dairy farmers.
Richard, if the productivity of the food manufacturers and the farmers has lagged improvements in productivity that the chains have been able to achieve, what should be done about it? If you're running the food manufacturers, what would you do?
Well, the issue, Stephen, will be whether they've got scale and whether they've got a sustainable export business. And one of the problems with the high dollar is it exposes businesses that haven't invested in capital, haven't innovated in their product, and therefore, as export markets dry up, then they become increasingly reliant on the domestic market, and or they get passed, like any of us do if we don't invest in our business, passed by competitors who do it better. So, you know, like all businesses in Australia, food processors need to be efficient, need to be innovative and creative, need to be looking for new markets. You know, what I think this, not necessarily the ACCC investigation will turn out, but I think there'll be more of a focus on that processing sector. You know, in terms of food suppliers to Coles, there are significant multinational companies with really significant market share in there at the moment, and if you want to talk about market power and bargaining strength, they've got an enormous amount.
The volumes you're pushing through, not just the supermarkets, but all the brands, all the retail brands you've got, have risen dramatically since you acquired them. There must be some winners out there. Oh, there are. There's some significant winners, and you know, unfortunately they're the good news stories, and they don't get the media. But we've got, even in fresh, you know, we've got our meat producers, our bakery suppliers. We've got a strawberry producer in Victoria that we've invested we've given long-term supply arrangements so they can invest new equipment, which gives them 10 months a year of fresh strawberry supply to our business. We've given them a 10-year contract, which has enabled them to do that, and their volumes increased dramatically. So there are plenty of winners. Before we get too much praise for Coles, let's look at the downside. Let's look at what is very clearly a serious weakness in your business, and that is that there's Woolworths out there, and they're efficient enough to earn a margin of about 7.5% on their sales, roughly that period. Whereas all you can manage is 4.5%. What are you going to do to fix that up and get back up to 7.5? Well, we were below 3, I think, when we took over the business. But there's still a big gap. Yeah, there is a big gap. What does that mean? What's your strategy? Well, what that means, Robert, is actually there's a heck of a long way for us to go. And one thing that we're not complacent, and
while we're satisfied with the progress Coles has made to date, we realise there's a long way to go.
Why can Woolworths get 7.5 and you only 4.5,
well,
as it is now?
Their liquor business is a better business, so you need to strip liquor out. Their liquor business is a better business than our business, and that means we've got a significant amount of improvement to do in liquor. And their supply chain is a more efficient supply chain, and they've got a higher volume business.
Why is it more efficient than yours?
Because Woolworths invested heavily in supply chain in the 90s and the 2000s, when Coles was struggling to make a decent profit, and so through that period, through distribution centres, through more integrated supply chain, through better systems, Woolworths stole a march on Coles, and Coles has, in the last 5 years, had to catch up on that, and we're making good progress, but there's a way to go.
When do you catch up? How long? 12 months, 18 months,
no,
2 years?
It'll be longer than that, Robert.
How long? 3 years, 4 years, 5 years?
I'm not sure when we'll catch up, but there's a lot to do over the next 5 years.
Ian McLeod and his team have lifted sales per square metre from,
Yeah.
I think it was 70-something% of Woolworths sales per square metre to about 90, and EBIT per square metre from about 40 to 60. So there's still a lot of upside in terms of earnings out of what you've got, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. So on sales, we've made good progress. One of the things we've done on sales per square metre is close underperforming stores. So when we took over the business, there was a rump of probably nearly 100 stores that were subscale, small, inefficient, and performing poorly. But they hadn't been closed because you take a hit on sales. So we've closed those underperforming stores, and the stores we're opening now are bigger and better, and that improves that sales per square metre, also improves your EBIT per square metre. And we've had, as I said earlier, I think 17 quarters now of sales growth and 14 quarters of outperformance. So that all helps. But EBIT, we've got a way to go. That's the opportunity, obviously. And supply chain is a big part of that. And we've got to, there's a lot of work to do on supply chain.
If you continue to close that gap,
Yeah.
is Woolworths the benchmark? Can you get more yield out of the existing footprint, or is the next phase to actually expand the network?
Both. We'll expand at about 2 to 3% of space per annum, which is pretty much in line with economic growth, if you like, and demographics. So we'll expand, but we've got a lot more to do out of the existing business. So we've refurbished 300 of 750 stores. So there's still another 450 stores to go. We've reduced the number of distribution centres we've got from near 40 to low 20s, but we need to do some more on that front. We've got to get a more integrated supply chain, so we've only just tried bringing in now, if you like, what we call easy ordering, which is fully sort of linked supply chain systems into the fresh area. So there's a heck of a lot more for us to do to improve the profitability of the business. And as I said, our liquor business needs a lot of work. There is a lot of work going on in liquor because we've got a lot of improvement to do there.
Will you take your, over the 5 year period, whatever period that might be, will you take your margin up to 7.5, the same for Woolworths, or will you reduce the prices further?
We'll look to keep prices low for customers, Robert, and I've never said that we aim to have the same EBIT to sales margin that Woolworths has.
So the price war is going to become a little more intense.
Well, that's good for consumers, but it's also
is it true?
Been good for our business.
Are you going to make the price war more intense?
Well, it'll stay intense, put it that way.
What are you going to do about liquor? I mean, you just simply don't have the scale there that Woolworths has. They've got a fantastic liquor business, as you say. How can you compete with that?
Well, Alan, the platform we had in terms of the businesses, particularly First Choice, the locations that when we took over Coles, were just not the right locations for a large format liquor business, and we've had to close a number of underperforming locations and find new locations. Now we've done some pretty good work on that, and so the benefits from that will show in the coming years. We've also had to change the product mix. We were selling much too much beer at a very low margin in First Choice, and we need to get a bigger mix of wine. We've had to sort out Liquorland or improve Liquorland. Liquorland's not a bad business, but we've had to improve it, invest in it, and make sure that Vintage Cellars is well positioned in its niche. So there's a lot going on. We've added some talented resources into the liquor business in recent times, and certainly the performance in the last half was materially better than it has been.
There's a fundamental difference in strategy, and the Dan Murphy's is they managed to combine in Dan Murphy's both the bulk and the premium end, which really works. You've got these various niches, and it does seem that doesn't work. So fundamentally, it seems to me you're on the wrong path.
Yeah, I think you'll see that in our new First Choices that it's a much better business than the old First Choice were.
Shouldn't you sell coal? Let's get out of it. You've got a great retail business. You can see where it's going. And you're stuck in coal.
It's been a great business for us, Robert.
It has
for a long time.
Its purpose.
Yeah, but you know, we acquired this business for $200 million in 2000. We spent a bit of money on it, but it's been a brilliant asset.
1.3 million or 1.4 million invested in now.
Billion, yeah.
Billion, sorry.
Yeah, and it's now got, you know, export sales capacity of 8.5 million tonnes per annum. It's low cost quartile. Long run, I think the metallurgical export business will be a good business. And you know, now, you know, when a business is in a cyclical decline through pricing, that is not the time to sell a business.
Isn't the case that you want to remain a conglomerate? You just don't want to be a retailer.
Well,
you are a conglomerate. You know, if you sold coal, you sold insurance, which you should have done years ago. I mean, it's not selling it now. You should have done years ago.
I don't agree with that.
We're sitting here talking for 20 minutes about retailing.
Yeah.
And you're a retailer.
No, we're a conglomerate, and happily being a conglomerate.
To stay a conglomerate, otherwise you lose your job.
No, I don't. No, and I can tell you that's the last thing I'm worried about. I can tell you quite sincerely that's the last thing I'm worried about. Never have been worried about it. But I think being a conglomerate actually has been a good thing for Wesfarmers, and I think we've been successful as a company over a long period of time, not in spite of being a conglomerate, but because we're a conglomerate. And you know, Alan, if we'd had this interview 6 or 7 years ago, you would have said, you're a resources business. Why don't you get rid of these other things? Because, you know, you've made $1 billion out of coal, and why don't you get big as a resource company? And, you know, there's been periods of time before that when Bunnings was going well, people saying, you know, you're a retail company. We're a multi-business company. We've been able to grow faster than most companies, if not all companies in Australia in the last 30 years, because we've been able to expand in markets we know and understand. And we've got an operating system to run the business with empowered CEOs, with a strong focus on return on capital in the business that's worked for shareholders. So, and it means that, you know, when we're looking for expansion opportunities now, we're not faced with the dilemma of go overseas or else. We've got plenty of opportunities, and you know, hopefully that'll be good for our shareholders into the future.
Would you consider buying more coal?
Absolutely.
So we'd looking to buy coal?
No, we'd consider anything that is going to make a return for our shareholders. So we'd consider more coal, we'd consider more retail, we'd consider more industrial businesses, and indeed, you know, if we felt an investment in insurance was going to be a good investment for our shareholders in the long run, we'd invest in insurance.
So you're looking at these other industries to see whether you should expand them?
Of course.
All the time?
All the time. Yeah. As I might say, we look for divestments as well. And you know, one of the things about Alan, you said, you know, you should have sold this business, you should have sold that business. One of the things that you know, if you think about our coal business, I could guarantee you that after we acquired Coles, every investment banker in Australia, if not the world, would have been running around people saying, by the way, you should buy this Wesfarmers coal asset because they've now got all this retail. And you know, we haven't, our door hasn't been knocked down in the rush of people coming along saying we'd like to buy it. So, you know, selling a business, you have to be opportunistic in some ways as well.
The performance of the retail businesses and the fact that Bunnings is now starting to recycle capital that it starts to property off its balance sheet means that your cash flows are starting to swell quite significantly. That provides an opportunity, obviously, for you to do a number of things. The perennial question is, do you spend it or do you give it back to shareholders?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's a good observation. You know, we've, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've invested very heavily in the businesses, in capital expenditure. We've continued to pay dividends back to our shareholders at a payout ratio of about 90%. And we've strengthened our credit rating. So we've moved from a BBB+ to an A- in those 5 years. And as you say, a lot of the capital in the last few years has been real estate for Coles and Bunnings, and we'll now be spinning some more of that off. So I think the group's going to be in a very strong cash generating position, which enables us the opportunity to invest and or find efficient ways to return money to shareholders. And as you all know, we've never been reluctant to give money back to shareholders if we don't have a place to invest it. So it's not burning a hole in our pockets.
As these guys said though, at the moment you look like a retail conglomerate with these other things stuck on the back.
Yeah.
Presumably this gives you the opportunity to get those other things up to scale. Or to get something else up to scale.
Well, at the moment we're investing $550 million building more ammonium nitrate capacity at our chemicals business, for example, and we've also invested fairly heavily in the last few years expanding our coal production capacity at Curra and Bengalla. So the industrial business has actually had some, a fair degree of capital expenditure the last few years, and we keep looking for investment opportunities. But if we're not confident that an investment's going to make returns above our cost of capital over the long run for shareholders, we'll find an efficient way of giving money back to shareholders.
So the 90% dividend payout ratio is pretty safe.
Well, I've said it's approximately, but
yeah.
We know our shareholders like dividends, Robert, and in the current market they like them even more. And so our policy is to maintain and grow our dividends over time, and hopefully we can do that.
Just one last thing. The master chain that Woolworths went into to give you a bad time, that was a mistake, wasn't it?
Well, you could ask Grant O'Brien that, but
has it really affected you?
I mean, it's early days. I think what we're pleased is that the momentum in Bunnings has continued. We've continued to add to the product range and service capability of the business. We've got a really strong pipeline of new stores to open. In the next few years we'll open a lot of new stores because that just happens to be the case. So I think Bunnings is a well-run business that's performing well, and we'll have competitors of all shapes and sizes, and in any business you've got to deal with your competitors by being innovative, by being efficient, and giving your customers what they want.
Richard, it's roughly, I think it's sort of 5 years since Ian McLeod's team was assembled, largely from the UK. You've already lost one of them, and the finance chief has gone back to the UK. Is there a risk that team that you put together have clearly done a superior job, breaks up and goes home?
I think Ian and his team have done a brilliant job, and we're looking forward to that continuing for some time. There will be some people, as in any business, who, for family reasons, and that's why Tony Buffin left, want to go home. But I think we've got one of the things we've done well that isn't in the spotlight has been build the talent pool in Coles immeasurably over the last 5 years. And people like Ian, John Durkin, Stuart Machen, I think are first-class operators. I think they've got a really terrific future inside the Wesfarmers group. Those people, Simon McDowell and others, and we've now got the capacity to fill the breach if people leave in any case. So I'm very confident of the human resource capabilities we've got in the Coles business now.
I think Ian Stolbertley doesn't want to go home until St Kilda's won a premiership, so he's here for a very long time.
He could be here for a while. A bit like if I said I'm only going to leave the CEO seat in Wesfarmers when Fremantle win a premiership. That could be a very depressing thing for a lot of people.
Oh, not doing too badly.
That's right.
We'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much, Richard.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Richard.